Morning, ladies and gentlemen, I'm meadsy69. Welcome back to the channel. Now, in today's video, we are going to look at 5 tanks that I think are perfect, or not just perfect, but really, really good for newbie players. Now, Wargaming has obviously done their video, which I kind of reacted to, and how I stated how wrong they were to add some of them tanks. Now, I love the fact that Wargaming are making these videos. I love it. These people will watch these videos. They're from Wargaming. They get thousands and thousands and thousands of views. But I just think it would be a bit better if it was a little bit more accurate. Now, in this video, obviously, a few of you may disagree with my opinion, which again is absolutely fine. That is where there is a comment section on YouTube where you can state that, and you could even state what top 5 tanks you would put for newbie players. Now, these are newer players into the game, newer players in tier 10, that tanks that you would play. So let's have a look to see what tanks I would add. Now, number 1, we're going to start straight off the bat. Number 1, I would add the Type 71. Now, the Type 71 is a good all-round tank. Literally, it could do just about anything. The speed is good on the tank. It's got the equipment where you could either use the gun depression, you could use the mobility. It's an all-round good tank. It's got a strong armor profile. The turret is very strong. The hull is very strong. Of course, if you do switch to the premium rounds, it does become a lot weaker, and the front plate is easily pennable. But if you wiggle the tank, that is all you need to do. You will get bounces, and even you can get bounces from the side, and even if you're lucky on the rear as well. But yeah, definitely at the moment, the number 1 tank for me for newer players in the game is the Type 71, and you can learn a lot of things from the Type 71. So that is why number 1 is the Type 71. Now, I know Wargaming did add this tank, but they added it as number 2. But personally, I think it should right now go for number 1 because it could do anything any heavy can do. So yeah, I just had to add this tank as number 1. Moving on to the next tank on this list. So the next tank on the list is the E50M. Now, there are a couple of medium tanks that you could add to this list, but I just think the E50M is the strongest of the bunch. It's got a good armor profile, it's got good speed, it's got good accuracy, aim time, DPM. It's got just about everything. And again, if you learn the E50M, then you're on your way to learning other medium tanks as well. So yeah, I think Wargaming added the pattern, and yes, the pattern has got a great turret. It has, but that is about it. However, the E50M has everything. It has a strong upper plate. It has a goodish turret. Of course, there are weak points. But yeah, I just think overall, the E50M is a much better add to this list than any of the other medium tanks. Now, I would go as far as saying maybe even something like the T22 is a great tank. But as it's a premium tank, I thought, you know what, I'm not going to add a premium tank for tanks for newer players, because I don't think newbie players shouldn't really be playing tier 10 medium tanks. So I thought, you know what, I'm not going to add the T22. The E50M is a good shout, and it's a great tank definitely to add in the list. You can bounce almost anything, especially from other mediums. If you're sort of face hugging, wiggling side to side, honestly, it is a very difficult to penetrate this tank. And as you can see, 1200 block damage in a medium is really, really good. And on top of that, it has amazing ram damage capabilities. You can ram tanks all day long. So the E50M is definitely one of my choices for newbie players. Now, the next tank on the list, I've gone for the E3. Now, I can't speak highly enough of the E3. The E3 is just amazing in almost any way. Now, again, Wargaming added the Jaeger to their top 5 list. And the Jaegeru, the Jag Panzer E100, yeah, it's a good tank in the right hands. Now the E3 is good in almost any hand, depending on how you play it. Of course, if a newbie just rolls up to the enemy team, they are going to get destroyed very, very quickly. But again, they're going to get destroyed more quickly if they roll up in the Jag Panzer E100. The E3 is more of a heavy tank, but of course you can play it like a tank destroyer if you really, really wanted. And if you play it like a tank destroyer, then you're going to learn about all the other tank destroyers as well. Like you might learn how to play the E4, you might learn how to play the Jaegeru and other tanks out there. But I think to start off, if you're looking at playing tank destroyers, then it has to be the E3 for a new player. Now, the Grill, of course, is not going to be great for a new player. The Death Star is not going to be great for a new player. So overall, tank destroyer wise, there are a couple. Maybe the Hori you can add, but I think a Hori in the wrong hands is not going to do very well. However, the E3, I think it's got everything that you need. It's got the alpha, the speed is decent enough as it is now, and it's got the armor profile. Now, of course, if you sit in the open and give the enemy an opportunity, they will be able to penetrate you. So as long as you keep back and you go maybe even hold down, or if you keep moving, I wouldn't play it like a tank destroyer, but I definitely think the E3 is one of the right tanks to add on this list. It's got everything you need, and you can learn a lot from the E3. Moving on. Now, this tank I've always recommended for newer players. Now, over the last year or so, it has become sort of a bit worse, and maybe you can even swap this for the IS-7. But considering the IS-7 is still it's a great tank. Now it's much better than it used to be. But I would probably still now just about prefer the IS-4 over the IS-7 for newer players, because the IS-7 has got a pike nose. If you angle, you can't really learn angling in the IS-7. You can learn hold down to some extent, but you can't really learn side scraping or face hugging or anything like that with the IS-7. However, you can do that with the IS-4 because it does have a strong upper plate. Of course, it does become weak when people switch to the premium rounds, but you can also learn side scraping, face hugging, and everything like that. So you can learn all of it with the IS-4. The tank itself is not as great as it once was, but for a new player, you can make mistakes in the IS-4. You can make more mistakes in the IS-4 than you can other tanks, and you can get away with it. So moving on to the last tank on this list, I have actually gone for the Kranvagn, but there is a couple of auto-loaders. I wouldn't normally suggest an auto-loader like an AMX-50B or a Type 57. Definitely when it comes to heavies, but I've gone for the Kranvagn because actually it is a very strong tank, and if you play the Kranvagn, you can also not just learn about heavy tanks and go and hold down and everything like that, but you can also get to grips with the auto loading system. Now, the reason I've gone with the Kranvagn because you can play the Kranvagn as an auto-loader, or you can play it as a single shotgun, or you can play it as an auto-reloader. So you've got 3 different types of playstyle that you can play the Kranvagn. Even though, again, just like the IS-4 and a few other tanks actually on the list, the Kranvagn is not what it once was, but it is still a good tank. It's still a strong tank in the right hands. And again, if you're in a hold-down position, there isn't a lot of tanks that are going to be able to penetrate you. So that means you're going to bounce a lot. If you're in the open, of course, you're not going to bounce too much because the hull is kind of weak. It's not the strongest. The hull isn't the strongest. But however, the turret is super, super strong. So yeah, I've gone with the Kranvagn. And again, some of you may disagree, but that is absolutely fine. This is just my opinion. There are a couple of other tanks that you could possibly add to the list. Maybe the Yo, you can add even tanks maybe like the T-62 you can add. It's a strong tank. again, the 1-2-1 you could add in the list, but this is my list. This is what I've gone for. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What tanks would you add in this list for the top 5 tanks for newbie players? But for now, I hope you enjoyed today's video, guys. I'm meadsy69, and I will catch you all very soon. Bye bye for now. With